Hey there guys, how's it going? Will here with Climate, Kayak, and Conversation, and today I wanted to share with you one of my interviews that I've been doing for my Climate, Kayak, and Conversation project. I've been sharing a bunch of my kayaking parts of the project, but now I want to start to get into a little bit more of the climate and conversation side of things. So today I want to share my first interview that I did with Julieta Rodrigo at the CLEO Institute, and we cover a whole bunch of different topics, and I hope you guys enjoy. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going okay. My name is Julieta Rodrigo. I am currently the Associate Program Manager at a nonprofit organization called the CLEO Institute, and we seek to educate and inform the public about the climate crisis. The climate crisis evokes a sense of urgency that we are dealing with a very tight timeline, and there is a lot of action that needs to take place with a lot of different stakeholders. I got involved with climate from a journalism and technology background. I used to teach students how to code and how to use technology to solve important global issues. And one of the issues that the students kept wanting to touch upon was the issue of climate. Since starting at the CLEO Institute, I've seen an increase in the positive outlook. We have noticed that through education, people really become change makers in their communities, and you empower voices that aren't often communicated in the climate scene, particularly that of youth, of minorities, and of women. What we say is that climate doesn't care what age you are, where you're from, what your family is like, your income levels. It's going to affect you in one way or another, and the more you're prepared and the more you're educated about it, the more you can become resilient as an individual and as a community.
What kind of advice do you have for anyone kind of looking to bridge that gap, to kind of go into this general world of science communication, climate communication, and what kind of lessons have you learned?
The main lesson I've learned is really to tell the truth. In the United States, we're seeing a shift in the way that the public perceives journalism and the authenticity that comes with journalists and news reporting. And so really telling the truth is the best way to get the public at large and the main audience to believe in the message. And climate scientists have been clear. 97% of climate scientists agree that climate warming trends are likely caused by human activities. And so if the community believes that there is a scientific consensus, because there largely is, then the reporters have the ability to amplify that message and try to convince the rest of the American public that that really is happening, and as well educate them on what they can do about it.
Where do you see things going in the kind of increasing and represented voice of minority groups in the climate movement?
Once minority groups are educated as to what's going on, they feel inspired and compelled to be a part of the solution and to be a part of the movement going forward. So the more we educate underrepresented groups, the more I see that community surging and going forward into a strong climate future, and that they would be demanding strong climate policies, that they would be more engaged voters if they're eligible to vote, and that they would help us share the climate message with others who may not be as informed.
In the work you do now, how does that affected the way you view your personal life and the personal decisions that you make?
I think working in the climate scene has made me realize that although I am one person has a lot to do and to contribute to the world at large. At the CLEO Institute, we follow an adage of think globally, act locally. And so if we bring that down to the personal level, if we think globally but act on an individual level as part of a collective whole, we really can enact powerful and bold change.
So are there communities that you've interacted with, communities that you've had conversations with, that maybe talk about the impacts that they've noticed in their communities, but maybe not attributing them to what we might call the climate crisis or climate change? And how do you kind of bridge that gap?
Definitely. What we see when we go into underserved communities is that they're definitely feeling the impacts through flooding, through higher heat days, but they don't have the capacity in terms of their climate literacy to make that connection. And when we go into underserved communities, we open the space for conversation and ask them to tell us what they've been seeing and how we can give them the climate knowledge so that they make those links.
As a society, and even within the community of Miami, what is one of the most important things that you think we need to tackle?
As far as South Florida goes, we really need to tackle the lack of climate literacy. And that comes from a variety of different factors. It comes from our schools, it comes from our culture, and it comes from the fact that many of us don't have other people in our networks that are very active in the climate scene. So increasing climate literacy is the first step to unlocking a chain reaction of events. And as far as solutions, there are many things that we can do on an individual level as well as a community in terms of policies. On an individual level, we can switch over to more plant-based diets. That doesn't mean necessarily having to go full vegetarian or full vegan, but incorporating more plants is a great way to mitigate the effect of climate change. And then also increasing the conversation. So engaging with other people and telling them to look into how climate impacts their lives. On a policy level, there are different things that we can do, ranging from pricing carbon to encouraging the use of more renewable energies, to encouraging that our schools have deeper and wider climate literacy engaged in their curriculum. Those are really strong things that we can do as a community.
How do you remain positive in your conversations when talking about the climate?
One of the best ways to remain positive when talking about the climate is realizing that we don't have much of a choice. It's either we get our act together and we as a community demand change, or things are going to get a lot worse. The scientific models show catastrophic effects moving forward over the next few decades as well as by the end of the century. And even though we think we might be resilient individually or as a community, there are many people that are going to be affected and impacted negatively. So when it comes time to disregarding the doom and gloom, it's because we have to. We cannot allow the climate crisis or the word itself be a detriment to the movement. If anything, the urgency of the climate crisis should compel us to solve this in a much more fast and effective way. Across the board, one of the things that everybody cares about is their health. And the topic of health is a way that we found is a great way to connect with people regardless of their backgrounds and their age and their income and their social status.
What are some of the things that you're seeing that gives you hope for the next generation?
The CLEO Institute has a program that caters to middle school, high school, and university students, and that's our Gen CLEO Youth Advocacy Program. They really give me hope because they're enlightened and they're inspired and they're motivated to act. They're fearless, and that really is inspiring as a mentor and as a coach to these students. They've been working on climate emergency declarations all throughout Miami-Dade County. They've been working with different stakeholders to pass climate policies and to support climate work in their communities. They've also been certified as speakers so that they can teach other students and their teachers about what the climate crisis entails, as well as what solutions they can start incorporating. The main takeaway that we want people to leave with is starting the conversation. And education can really be the key to unlock the change that we need. Everything is connected to climate. At CLEO, we talk about climate being a threat multiplier. So if you're worried about the economy, if you're worried about healthcare, if you're worried about immigration, if you're worried about your future in the capacity of being able to have access to food and being able to have access to water, climate touches upon issues that are important to all Americans. And once we establish that link and once we help people understand what that link is, people's eyes start to open and the possibilities are really endless.
All right, guys, that is my interview with Julieta. I learned so much from talking with her and her incredible perspective on the climate situation down in southern Florida. If you guys have any comments, thoughts, please leave those down in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure to go ahead and give that video a thumbs up and give it also a subscribe so you guys can continue to see all the videos that I'm going to be producing for this project thus far. If you guys want to see more of my videos, go ahead and check out my channel as well. I've got a bunch of kayaking videos that I've been doing about my first 200 miles in Florida, and hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll see you guys back out on the water.